Good afternoon, everyone. My name is Ricardo Jefferson. I would like to welcome you to our third and final event in our higher education summer series, and it is entitled Being a Successful Virtual Student. Before we get into the content, because we have some great information for you today, I want to go over a few housekeeping items. First and foremost, all participants should know that you are in the listen mode only. But if you have questions or comments, you can put them in the chat box. So please use the chat function to ask any questions or communicate with us. There will be a question and answer period at the end of the presentation. Again, my name is Ricardo Jefferson. I am the Student Loan Ombudsman. I work for the Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking, and I'm here to help you look for sources of funding for college and also to address any issues that there might be related to your student loans. At this time, I would like to introduce our Commissioner, Rehva Woods, who's going to provide us with opening remarks. Commissioner Woods, take it away.
Great. Thank you, Ricardo, and thank you for that introduction. Good afternoon to my fellow panelists and also to the general audience that is with us here today. As Ricardo has mentioned, my name is Rehva Woods, and I am the Commissioner of the District's Department of Insurance, Securities, and Banking, and it is my pleasure to join you for our third week and final webinar for the higher education series. I just want to acknowledge a number of our representatives here. We have representatives from Trinity University, from Howard University, University of the District of Columbia, and the University of Maryland as well. So thank you all for joining us. And to our two student representatives, thank you for being here as well. I'm looking forward to hearing your remarks during this webinar. Before I begin, I want to also acknowledge and thank our partners who've been involved with this webinar since its inception, the Office of the State Superintendent of Education, specifically the District's Tuition Assistance Grant Program, and the Educational Opportunity Center. Thank you for your ongoing participation and support with this webinar series. As Ricardo mentioned, we kicked off the series 2 weeks ago. Our first session was on what will the fall term look like, and some of the same panelists that we have today were on that particular webinar, and there was a lot of information shared about what our local colleges and universities are doing to prepare for the upcoming fall academic year. And last week, we had a very robust, informative conversation around financial aid and your student accounts. We had representatives from the district's DC TAG program that provided a lot of resourceful information about making sure that families and students know and understand the full gamut of scholarships and grants that are available for them to pursue to ensure that they can have a successful academic year. And here we are today talking about being a successful virtual student. I know that this is front of mind for a number of students, a number of families, not just in the higher education space, but families overall. I know families are preparing young children to be virtual in the fall. And high school students are being prepared to be virtual in the fall. So there's a lot to learn, there's a lot to discuss, and I'm very excited to hear from our panel today. We know that many of the schools, as a result of COVID-19, are shifting to an online platform in the fall. There's a lot of uncertainty, there's a lot of questions that students and families have about what will be needed and required of them to ensure that they are successful in the upcoming academic year. And so we're here today to learn various strategies and tips from our local colleges and universities that will help to prepare our students for success this upcoming fall year. We know that many of us are accustomed to the traditional classroom environment and what that offers, that direct connection between professors and students. But we know that for many won't be a reality in the fall. And so it is important that we are providing information about what our local colleges and universities are doing to prepare students in this new virtual space. This is something that, of course, is of paramount concern for the Bowser administration. The mayor wants to make sure that we are doing everything that we can to be supportive of our young people in their higher education pursuits. And so I'm pleased to be able to provide this platform. Thank you to Ricardo for all of the work that you've been doing. And as he shared, if there are any concerns or questions that you have regarding funding for higher education and student loan debt management, I will highly encourage you to contact Ricardo after the webinar. Also, if you were not able to join us for our previous 2 webinars, I would highly encourage you to reach out to Ricardo to get a copy of those webinars. A lot of very, very important information was shared. With that, I'll kick it back over to you, Ricardo, and thank you again for your effort in putting this together, and thank you to the panelists for being involved in today's webinar. Thank you.
Thank you so much for your words, Commissioner Woods. And I would like to take this opportunity to introduce our 4 distinguished panelists. We have Benjamin Beltran, who's a coordinator for Common Ground Multicultural Dialogue Program at the University of Maryland. Omar Harrod, who is the lead recruitment specialist at the University of District of Columbia. Rehva Jones, Director of Business Programs for the Schools of Professional Studies and Business Graduate Programs at Trinity Washington University. And Tammy McCants, Associate Director of Admission for Howard University. They are all very, very knowledgeable in their respective areas and bring a wealth of experience. I'm going to turn the presentation now over to Mr. Beltran. Go ahead, Ben.
Yeah, thank you, Ricardo. Thank you, Commissioner Woods. Good evening, everyone. I'm really excited to be here. So just a little bit about what I do. So I'm at the University of Maryland in College Park. And so I work primarily overseeing co-curricular programs related to diversity and inclusion on campus. And so that's part of my role. And I also teach a couple of classes that are a part of our Gen Ed requirements for students that are related to cultural competency. So as I speak today, I'm speaking a little bit as someone who works with and supports students, and also as someone who's actually a professor and kind of can speak to the experience of working with students in the classroom as well. So I just wanted to highlight, I think, a few things that occurred to me that I think everyone should sort of think about as you enter into an academic year. It's going to look really different, right, than a lot of educational experiences that you've had in the past. And so I have a few sort of high points on the slide there to kind of guide you through this. I want to start by saying that I think the most important foundational piece to thinking about academic success is thinking about your overall personal wellness. You know, as someone who works with students, I find that the success in the classroom starts with, you know, taking care of yourself, starts with getting enough sleep, starts with, you know, a healthy diet, all these things that we all know, but as we get caught up in the chaos of a semester, can sometimes fall by the wayside. And so I just want to highlight that I think one of the most important things you can do for yourself if you want to have a successful semester is to really prioritize your own wellness. And you'll see at the end of the PowerPoint, I have a link to an article that highlights 5 sort of tips for taking care of yourself and your wellness during COVID-19, because we know that this is just an incredibly sort of stressful time, a time filled with a lot of uncertainty. And so, you know, I think a lot of us, as we return to sort of campuses, you know, there's a desire to want to maintain some semblance of normalcy, and I think that normalcy, in a sense, is good. And I think we also have to balance that with accepting that things are not going to be what we thought normal was, right? Like, things are going to be different at pretty much every institution in the next few weeks as we gear up to start semesters. So I just want to name that this is going to be a semester that for a lot of people is really challenging. And so take care of yourself, you know, stay informed, but if you need to, like, kind of log out of social media from time to time, for your own wellness, and certainly do that. And of course, at University of Maryland, and I think probably all the other institutions that are represented on this call, there are counseling services that you can utilize, whether that be sort of in person or virtually. So I would encourage you to use those resources. Another thing I want to say, and this is particularly an experience I have as a professor, is that it's going to be really important, I think, for you all to communicate early and often with your instructors. I would stress this if classes were in person, but given that the vast majority of classes this fall will be virtual, I think it's actually even more important than normal. Just because having that relationship with your instructor is just so meaningful, and making sure that if you have a question, that you pose those questions to your instructor, rather than just kind of guessing or kind of being in the dark. So certainly feel free to email your professors. If they do some sort of office hours, that will probably look different this semester, but if they do, if they provide a phone number and will say you can call me at this time, certainly take them up on that offer. And communication is two-way, right? So your professors will be reaching out to you a lot too. So it's going to be so important that you are, that you're checking your email and that you're just kind of staying on top of that, because that will be the platform where important information is going to get shared. So that's the second thing. The third thing I'll highlight is the importance, I think, of collaborating with your peers. What we're missing in a virtual classroom is the experiential component of doing something alongside others. And I think we can replicate that, right? So if you have a question about the content, I would encourage you to definitely check in with your other classmates, and ask them for help, right? Like if you need help studying, definitely reach out to your classmates. That's something that I've found is really effective. Group studying is one of the best ways that you can kind of get a handle on course material. So I'd highly recommend that. The reason I put carefully in parentheses there is that something that I've noticed since March is sort of an uptick in students not quite understanding rules around academic integrity and plagiarism, right? So I want to encourage you all to collaborate with peers, but to make sure that you're doing it in a way that is sort of acceptable and follows the lines of academic integrity. So just for example, so if a professor says that, an exam or something is open note, which I think is something that has happened in some classes with this new online format, open note doesn't necessarily mean that you can, copy your classmates' answers and turn them in as your own. That's not the same thing, right? And so the important thing there, if you ever have a question about what's acceptable, it's always good to ask the instructor, right? Rather than to sort of do something thinking that it was acceptable, and then, the student conduct office gets pulled in and you have to explain, oh, I didn't know. You can just avoid that altogether by checking in if you're unsure if what you're doing is sort of acceptable within the rules of academic integrity. And the last thing I'll name here that I think is going to be really useful for especially for those of you who might be attending an institution in the fall virtually, but are living in your family's home off campus. I think it's going to be really important for students to create a structure that allows them to be successful and to be productive, right? Your family's home may or may not have been designed as the ideal sort of workspace for a college student. And so I think there are steps you can take, right? Like designating a workspace for you, a space that's maybe quiet, a space where you feel like you can focus and concentrate, and communicating that with your parents, your siblings, roommates, whoever that is, to say, this is going to be my designated school workspace, and this is what I'm going to need this space for in order to be successful, right? So I think that's really important. And another thing as far as structure, I think, is really managing your own schedule. I've experienced this, and maybe some of you have as well. I think that the sense of time has really been warped by COVID and quarantining and things like that. But I think that creating a schedule that works for you is going to be really important. And for me, I find that, of course it makes sense to schedule in when your classes are. If you're having virtual classes that are meeting synchronously, make sure you got that on your calendar. But it's also good to schedule time for like studying, for working on assignments. Like actually put that on your calendar, like 6 to 8 tonight, I'm working on my paper for this class, right? And it kind of holds you accountable and helps you to organize all the things you need to do and creates a plan for you. And in addition to that, I mean, some people may want to do this, some people may not, but I find that this is sometimes helpful. Don't be afraid to schedule in like break times or times for self-care, time to spend with family, right? Because the other thing too is for folks who might be staying at home with their families, you may feel like, oh, I want to spend time with my family. I'm here with them. And certainly, for a lot of people, family time is a part of personal wellness. And so I would encourage you to schedule that time as well. One tip I'll share related to scheduling time, it's a technique called the Pomodoro technique. And I think Pomodoro is an Italian word that translates to tomato. Not sure what the backstory is there. You can probably Google that. But essentially, this is something that I used when I was a graduate student. The essence of this is scheduling a set amount of time, like on a timer, and saying, for this amount of time, I'm going to work sort of like, nonstop as much as I can. So if you're working on a paper or a project, you set your timer usually for like, a lot of people say 20, 30 minutes is a good time range for you to like actually focus for that entire duration. So I would encourage you to try that. There's an app, I think on the end of this PowerPoint, there's a link to some apps you can use that are free, but also you could definitely just use your phone timer and just set it for 30 minutes. And for that 30 minutes, you're not checking Instagram, you're not sort of watching TV, and all you're doing is working on a specific task, a specific assignment. And then when the 30 minutes is up, you take a break, right? You get up, walk around, you get a glass of water. And then you schedule it in those increments. And I found that works for me, and I would encourage that technique as well. That's a very specific example, but I think it gives you a sense of some of the strategies that might be helpful for you as you're trying to be sort of as productive as you can be, and sort of try to avoid those distractions that you could have, particularly if you're like, in your family home or things like that. I know it's, Netflix is always there, the internet is always there, social media, but, it's helpful to think through what can I do to sort of tune out those distractions for periods of time so that I can be productive. So those are the things that I would highlight to start with, and certainly at the end when there's questions, I'd be happy to answer any questions that any of you have.
Thank you so much, Ben, for your insight. And we are going to turn it over to Rehva Jones. Rehva, it's all yours.
Good afternoon, everyone. I am so happy to be here to talk to you at this unprecedented time about strategies for success. And I would like to pick up on a lot of points that Professor Beltran made in terms of when he's talking about establishing basically relationships with your professor. I just want to back up for a moment and talk about what it means to work towards becoming an expert learner. Well, what is an expert learner, right? Well, there are people who are motivated and they're disciplined. They initiate learning opportunities. They're self-reflective and adaptive. So these are traits that are really important in a physical classroom, but they're even more important in an online space. You really have to be think about learning as something that you're doing and not something that's happening to you in order to make the most out of this very strange and new environment. And I dare say it's here to stay. Trinity is one of those universities that was a little hesitant about going online, and then suddenly in spring 2020, we were thrown into an online environment and we're swimming. So I don't think that, I think that some of the courses, particularly those that are more geared towards adult learners or learners who have a full-time job during the day, we see that this particular mode of learning is probably here to stay. So this is not a blip on the screen. I think it is something we're all going to have to get used to. I want to say three things about an expert learner, right? They have three characteristics, and that is they actively engage with the material. So it's not this passive sit and get. To actively engage with the material means you're reading it ahead of time, believe it or not. And you're asking questions. You are curious about how things connect to one another. And you strive to be able to teach your peer or someone in the class or maybe someone at home the material that you're learning. It's when you're teaching is that you know you've mastered the material and the concepts. So expert learners are engaged learners. They take responsibility for their own learning, as I mentioned earlier. They view learning as something that they do for themselves and not something that's being done to them or something that, you know, is drudgery and that they have to do. And I know sometimes that's tough, but it's helpful when you're reframing in that space. And again, as Professor Beltran talked about, expert learners use specific processes to guide their own learning. And it does include things like setting aside a space for learning, making a calendar, and sticking to it, like making a schedule and being able to take learning in bite-sized pieces. Don't try to swallow the whole elephant. You have to take it in bite-sized pieces. Cramming is not going to work in an online environment. And it does lead you down a very slippery slope of oversharing, I'll put it like that. And where the software and the learning management system that you're using, know that it is specifically programmed to pick up those abnormalities, let's say, right? So the best bet is just do your best and don't slide down that slope around academic honesty. The second point I want to make is to establish genuine relationships with your professors and your instructors. Like Professor Beltran, I am also a professor as well as an administrator. I teach microeconomics, macroeconomics, and statistics, which are not the easiest courses in the world, and they're going to be a real challenge in an online space. But get to know your professors. What is missing is that you're not going to be able to bump into them on the yard. You're not going to be able to just happen by them or happen by their office. So your interaction with them has to be intentional. You have to be intentional. They are people too, believe it or not. And it would do you good to establish relationships. They will become a part of your network, your professional network. They are the ones, or we are the ones that write the letters of recommendation. So a couple of things about here. When you get a chance to introduce yourself, be thoughtful about it. Make sure that the professor has a sense of who you are, and not just you know your name and that you're a junior. Like, what are you interested in? What are your goals? Be a little open about that. Learn about your professor, right? It's not only enough to go on the websites that usually slam professors and tell you whether or not they're easy or a hard professor, but go to LinkedIn, look them up. If they're listed on your college website, what are their research interests or what are their career trajectories? What have they done? Get to know them before you walk into the class. Make participation a priority, right? And this goes back to the expert learner. If you are actively engaging, you're asking questions, you're prioritizing participation. You want to get everything you can out of that instructor while you have that time face-to-face as much as it can be, or synchronously. You don't want to wait until the lecture is over and then you have all those questions and now you're trying to chase the instructor down. Be respectful. And the best way to do this, again, is pay attention. I know it's tough, but I will make a very unpopular statement and say, keep your cameras on. Imagine the challenge of trying to teach to a bunch of white boxes on a screen. Show the professor that you're interested. And strive to get good grades in the course, of course, right? You want to be known as that person who if they didn't receive an A, let's say, but the instructor know that you tried. You know that you tried. You did everything you could. You pulled out all the stops. that leaves an impression. That shows the instructor that you're really serious about your education. And it's not just something that you're doing just to be doing because that's what young folks do, but it's something that you really understand the importance of and you want to get the most out of it. And lastly, around the second point, I would say stay in touch. Stay in touch with your instructors. They become your network. They're the ones that give you letters of recommendation. And while I'm on that point, ask for a letter of recommendation if you do well, of course. Ask for a letter of recommendation right after the course while it's fresh. That way, if you have to go back to the instructor when you're ready to get a job or you're going after an internship, you can share the letter that the instructor wrote while your performance was still fresh and kind of get them thinking about how you were in their course, and they can, easily refresh the letter. The third point I have is understand, read the syllabus thoroughly. The syllabus becomes even more important, and I know folks think that it's just a bunch of policies and boilerplate language, but in the syllabus, you have to understand a few things. One, what is the instructor's interactive plan? What do I mean by that? How often are they going to communicate? How long would you expect for them? How long do they take to turn your information around? What's the best time to email them? In this environment of online, we sometimes have a tendency to think that the instructor is going to email us back at 2:30 in the morning when we have a question because we're studying. That's not it. The professor may not answer your email over the weekend. So if you have a project that has to be done on Monday, you have a question on Friday, you didn't get to them by a certain time, you might be jammed. But these are the things that you want to look for in the syllabus because you want to be clear about what that plan of communication is. How are you going to communicate? How often are they going to give you feedback? How soon? An instructor that's giving you feedback weeks and weeks and weeks after the project has been due, that's not helpful for you because it doesn't give you enough time to incorporate what it is they're trying to share with you into your next project, right? So you want to make sure that you understand how they're going to interact with you. You want to understand the schedule of assignments, and this is different from kind of the learning schedule. But when are things due, so that you can plan out how long it's going to take you to get it done. But you want to be clear. You want to make the professor clear. Sometimes I think what we have to remember is that the online environment is new to a lot of instructors as well. And so they may, things that you can get away with in a face-to-face, you have to be a lot more tighter about it when you're in an online environment. So as a student, you have to advocate. These are things that you have to know. How you're progressing during the course. The professor should have a grade book set up in the learning management system. Do not let them get away without doing that. You have to understand how you're doing at every step of the way. You should always be able to click into your grade book and see exactly where you stand. If your professor has only two things, a midterm and a final, you might want to have a really good talk with them so you can understand, because that's a pretty high stakes class at that point. And you don't want to wait until the end of the semester to try to appeal the grade rather than to understand all along the way what the expectation was. And that gets me to the last point. Please make sure you understand how the professor is grading you. How is the grading structure? What does that look like? How does it work? Again, you don't want to wait until the end of the semester when you're trying to appeal a grade to have that explained to you. You want to be able to understand it up front. That way you can advocate for yourself, right? It is a brave new world out there, and we're all kind of getting our sea legs under us. My last point is become adept with the student portals that's being used. Now, this means the learning management system, or it could be some of your textbooks have online labs attached to them. Please understand each one of them as best you can and understand how they all relate. So you should go into your learning management system for this, but you may have to go into the textbook portal for your homework or for tests. You should be clear about that at the beginning of the semester. I'll share with you that I had an incident this summer. I'm teaching a 6-week course, and when I go to give folks midterm, just kind of letting them know what they're doing, what they need to pass the course, in week 3, that's when students came back to me and told me that they didn't understand what I was talking about. So it's really, really important that you understand the systems that are being used, because there may be a lot, there may be one, but I guarantee you it would make it much easier on yourself if you understood exactly what was in the learning management system, whether it's Blackboard or Moodle or another such system, and what will be outside of the system, what you will be responsible for. So those are the four things that I think will help students acclimate more to the online environment, but also will keep your professors sharp as you move through the semester together. So thank you.
Thank you so much, Professor Jones, for that sage advice and the passion and enthusiasm. Having said that, I am going to move on to Omar Harrod. Mr. Harrod, what do you have to say to us today?
Yes, good afternoon, and thanks again, Ricardo, and all of you all that are, heading this whole process and this opportunity to this dialogue of us to just kind of talk to you a little bit about what to kind of think about, what to kind of expect. We pretty much are, at this point, we're now pretty much echoing the same things that Mr. Beltran said. So just kind of, he really set it off right. So great job, Ben, on that. But pretty much a lot of the same things that have already been spoken. Again, from the very top, do not be afraid to ask for help from professors. I put that in bold because I myself have not been on an online class. However, I have several friends that are professors that have been working with students throughout this process, and some of the stories they tell me are quite interesting about how they'll get to the very end of the class, and then all of a sudden they have the student that pops up and says, "Hey, I didn't get a grade," and they're like, "Well, you've not been in class this whole time, so you're not supposed to get a grade at this point." So just different things like that. Just make sure that you are connecting with your professor and finding out, again, the following just the different protocols of the class, making sure that if you have questions about assignments or whatever it may be, please make sure, again, the syllabus is going to definitely be your sort of guide map through the process of the class as well. So you definitely want to just kind of keep on top of all of those things, which goes right into organizational skills. You want to make sure you know due dates, what special assignments, projects, things of that nature. I know for the University of District of Columbia, we are going to be doing some hybrid courses. So some of the classes, some parts of classes will be in classroom, and then some will be online. So knowing that, understanding what that's, what classes are going to be, what they're going to asking you for, what is it that you're going to have to be responsible for. Those are things that we are, those are the things rather that you need to know, because again, if it's something where you actually do have to go onto the campus, you need to know that. And I'm guessing most of those classes will be like your lab classes, like your sciences. So again, those are things that you're going to need to know about that. Special assignments. Again, the deadline might be set for a couple of weeks out. So don't wait till the last minute thinking that you'll be able to get them all in or get it all in at the very last minute. So not procrastinating. Those are things that are just extremely important. And then from that goes right to the next thing. Just like in the actual classroom, online classrooms or classes, those classes and those grades are real. So A's are A's and F's are F's. So do understand that. So I think a lot of times there's sort of this idea that there's sort of a make-believe or not, they're not, the grades are a little bit different on from the virtual versus the actual in-classroom perspective. But no, they are exactly the same. So make sure that you do understand that your grades are real. They are going to be recorded. They're going to either be great or they're not going to be great. So do understand that. The other thing about sort of connecting with the professor and also sort of staying ahead of your dates is making sure that you're checking emails on a consistent basis, at least 3 times a day, because that's going to be important, because you're going to be getting information from different professors at different times, and so as well as from the school itself, what the university, what your university is doing about different things. So you want to know what you want to be in the know. So make sure that you're checking your email, and make sure that you have a working email. Make sure that it is one that you have access to, all of those things, because you'd be surprised at how many students put out email addresses that they don't ever look at. And a lot of times the universities and your professors and individuals are trying to get to you. And so that might be the one way or the only way that they're able to get to you. So please make sure you have, check your emails. If they need to be updated, make sure that you're going through the process to make sure that they are updated so that everyone knows that, what your actual email address is. And again, please make sure you check it, several times a day, at least 3 times a day. Again, maintaining daily and weekly reading assignments. That's something that you can kind of get lost in. I know for students that are like on a graduate level, they may be a little bit more used to that kind of thing, but from the undergraduate side, may not be as used to that. So, if they saying you have 2 weeks to get it done, again, don't wait till the last minute to try to get it all done, because they are expecting you to kind of keep up with those daily readings and assignments that go along with that. So please make sure that you're keeping up and maintaining that. And that's also going to go into the time management piece. Make sure you are scheduling out your time. It was mentioned earlier that you may want to just kind of schedule your time around your regular class time, so that you do have the time to study or get assignments done. So making sure that you're if you need to step away, get away, find a space, make sure that you're doing all of that so that you will be able to be productive and be successful. Because ultimately, at the end of the day, we all want you to be successful. And so, however you make that happen, we are hopefully here to help support you. We may be able to give you some advice on some things to do, but definitely make sure that you are carving out that time and space to be able to be successful. And then going into, from time management, keeping up with important university dates and deadlines. So withdrawal dates or add drop dates, any special dates or things that are going on within the university, please make sure that you put that on your calendars so that you are aware of those things. For financial aid or for whatever it may be, please make sure that you're putting those dates on your calendar as well so that you're aware of them. Actively participating in online discussions. Again, sort of what Ms. Jones said earlier, you want to be active. A lot of times that is going to be the way that your professors are going to connect with you. That's the same thing if you're sitting in an actual classroom. The more you interact with the professor, at least in a positive way, the better that they're going to remember you. So when maybe if things are, you are struggling in the class or on a project or whatever, they're going to remember that you were at least active in the class, and that's going to definitely help you and help them to be able to help you in the long run. And then, so again, kind of like what we said before, studying is going to be extremely important, especially now that you're not in sort of the environment that you may normally be in for when you would study. I know me personally, I'm not a library person. That drives me nuts. I'm going to be at home, have some music on, and do the work, whatever it is, the work that I'm doing. That works for me, but that doesn't work for everybody. So whatever those things are that for you, that will make you successful, make sure that you're doing those things or setting yourself up in that environment that will allow you to study and get the information in as much as possible. And then the last thing, make connections with your classmates. Try to network as best as possible. It's a unique environment, but use it to your advantage. Again, Beltran mentioned it before, about, getting to know, working with some of your classmates, as long as they're working on the positive things and working on understanding how to understand the class, understand the material. And then again, maybe you may be able to have a study group with several of your classmates. Those are things that are going to help you. I know they help me tremendously through school. That's how I got through not only college, but high school, junior high school, elementary school, was being able to connect with my friends, and they were able to help me through the process. I will also mention this that I didn't put in my notes. If you have a learning disability, please make sure that you connect with that office, because they will also be able to give you information on study tips, on some guides and some information as to how to, again, navigate through this process while you're not going to be directly working with your professors and teachers. Please make sure that you connect with that department. Again, and that's with any types of learning disabilities. Make sure that you're getting the accommodations that you need. That's extremely important. Just because we're at home or not in the classroom doesn't mean that you still don't deserve to get those different things, those different amenities and whatever it is that you need. So again, those are just my things, again, from the University of the District of Columbia's perspective, but pretty much, mirroring and echoing what everyone else has said. And I think that this is going to be a unique year for everybody. So again, in the overall aspect, please, be willing to work with us, as we're also going to be willing to work with you. But it's all about communication at the end of the day. That's what I got my degree in, is in public relations and in communication. And it's all about making sure that that we are both understanding each other on both sides of the table. So that's going to make everyone successful in this whole process.
Thank you so much, Omar, for your words of wisdom and experience. I know that everyone listening will take something from what you've been able to share along with all our other panelists. I'm going to turn it over to Ms. Tammy McCants. Tammy.
Thank you so much, Ricardo, for hosting this session and inviting us to be a part of this again. After looking at the format for today's session, I thought our best contribution from Howard University would be to hear directly from our students what their experiences have been having migrated to this online format. We're going to start with Ocean Latimer. Ocean is a sophomore, honors marketing major, sports management minor from Los Angeles, California. Ocean, would you begin by sharing with our guests what your career aspirations are, and what do you see the trajectory of your matriculation at Howard looking like?
So my career goals after Howard, I want to be a sports agent and eventually own my own sports agency and kind of leverage that agency to create more opportunities for African Americans within the sports industry. I know that if you look, the NFL draft, roughly 60% of those players were represented by Black agents, but it's more about getting the non-Black athletes to sign with us. And I feel that once you build that trust and I kind of go through it and try to fix this industry, I believe that I'll be able to leverage what Howard's taught me and be able to change the sports industry as a whole.
Fantastic. So like all other schools, we migrated to this online format right as we came out of our spring break season. Had you ever taken an online class prior to your experience this spring?
No, I have not.
And what has your experience been? I know that you finished the spring semester very well, and then you also elected to take courses over the summer.
So spring and summer semester, I was going into it knowing that I was taking online classes, so it was easier for me to prepare for that. Like most of the panelists before have said, it's all about your time management skills, really, and you have to go into it knowing that you have to make a different type of connection. I feel like it was hard, but kind of easy because one, my teachers were in the same environment that I was with, that we couldn't leave our houses, so they were more responsive to their emails, and really being able to reach out to them and them getting quicker responses than I would if we were in person, that was a really big benefit. But I feel like we still didn't have that personal aspect that you get when you connect with someone one-on-one or face-to-face. Spring semester, Howard sent us home in March, and then we had to finish the other half of our semester. And really that road was kind of rocky because a lot of the classes I was taking they were hands-on, and kind of going from that to the online platform was tricky. And it was a learning process for us and definitely for our teachers because some of them didn't know how to work technology and others were trying to teach us some things and certain platforms didn't work online. So it was really something where I had to have patience because what I expected had to change. And then the teachers also had patience with us because what they expected had to change. So it was like a mutual thing where we all realized that we have to work together to get through the semester.
We did give students the option of having the grade they actually earned in the class for the spring be the grade reflected on their transcript, or having the pass-fail option. I know that you elected to have your grades reflected. What drove that decision for you?
So I felt my grades were solid coming into the whole transition period. And then while I kind of learned and kind of grasped how online concepts like work and like teaching myself online, it was more like a glide. So I was able to increase my math grade. I was able to increase my other classes because it was more like I could easily email my teachers and they were all like extremely responsive to what I was saying. And I realized that I didn't need to do pass fail because one, I wanted to go to law school, and I knew that even though everybody kind of is considering that this time was hard on a lot of people and that pass fail was an option because there was a lot of other outside stresses that people might not have known of, I knew that it would make me a stronger candidate to elect to keep my letter grades. And with that, I just looked back at my grades and realized that I would get majority A's if I elected to keep majority of my classes non-pass fail.
Awesome. So what have you enjoyed most about the online format?
I like that it sort of feels like one-on-one learning. I always wanted to take online classes because they seemed simpler to me. It seemed that if I was face-to-face on someone as if it was like a FaceTime call, then it would be easier to kind of get information versus sitting in a classroom, raising my hand and going through the motions with that versus being able to just have a one-on-one aspect with my teacher. And also, there's like little things. So like if you're in in-person class and you sit in the back, it's hard to see the board sometimes, so you won't be able to see concepts or you might miss things. But if you're on an online format, the teachers can record the classes for you, or they share their screen and the screen is like right in front of you. So it's easier to kind of get those little things, and that's what like added to the success of online learning for me.
All right. Thank you, Ocean. So what has been your least favorite experience about the online environment?
There's no personal feel really. There's this aspect of learning in the classroom and kind of like learning from experiences and that hands-on approach that's missing from the online format. It's something that you can't really do online because it won't feel natural. And it's like there's missing that human component. You can learn online through a video and you could have all these things that is trying to replicate what it was, but having that human component where it's like one-on-one, like I can physically see what's happening, that's a really crucial part about learning. And really that human interaction just can never be replaced online. And that's one of like the least favorite things I found about online learning for me.
So in terms of tips and advice for first-time students, a lot of the students on this call are going to be going to college for the first time this year. And of course, you know, their expectations had to change based on the pandemic. So if you think back to your semester as a freshman and having to have your entire freshman experience now virtually, what's the best advice and what tips as a student can you share with those that are about to embark on this journey?
I'd say that utilizing social media and like for Howard, we have like GroupMe, which is like a platform that we use to communicate with people in our class, and we'll have like different group chats for each class that we have. Really utilizing like those techniques to kind of meet your classmates, really. I feel that when you work with other people and there's some sense of balance, and then it's easier for you to communicate with organizing study groups, or if you miss a class and you could always get notes from someone, like there's a connection that you have to make and a network you have to build. And I feel like that's going to be the hardest part of this whole online environment for incoming new freshmen. So really just utilizing social media to kind of get a better understanding of your classmates, try to find more people in your class, maybe even privately messaging them during your first class to kind of be like, hey, this is my email. If you have any questions or if I have any questions, I want to reach out to you. And second, it's really important that you network with your professors because as like the three panelists have said before, building that one-on-one connection with your professors is going to be kind of hard, but because they're in the same situation that you're in, they're going to be more responsive to your emails. And then you could always set up like private Google Hangouts or private Zoom calls. And then you get, as they start to learn more about you, then they're going to have some type of care for you. And really, it's just about being genuine. And it's not like, oh, last second, I have finals the week before, and then I kind of like pop up out of nowhere and I hit up my teachers and I'm like, hey, so. That's not genuine. If you get on it in the first week and you kind of keep building that relationship, then there's going to be some type of sympathy and there's going to be some real energy and care that they're going to have for you that can go beyond the classroom, and that can be for internships and opportunities outside. So really, if you kind of build that connection with your teachers, it's going to benefit you in the long run.
Thank you, Ocean. I wish you all the best and all of the students on this call the best in their endeavors this semester as we all move forward in this new normal. Mr. Jefferson, we'll turn things over to you.
Thank you so much, Tammy, and thank you so much, Ocean, for your words of wisdom. It's nothing like hearing this information directly from the source, and you are truly that source because you are the one who are actually going through this experience, and we are heartened by your courage and your perseverance. Thank you so much for joining our panel today. I'd like to take a few moments to talk about resources, online resources for you guys to utilize during this virtual experience. Bear in mind, a lot of the resources that are available on campus are seemingly not available, but it's not entirely like that. The DC Public Library, dclibrary.org, is an amazing resource. Some of you may say, oh, I'm not, a small kid, I don't need a library card. Well, guess what? If you don't have a library card, get your library card because it comes with an enormous amount of privileges. In this virtual space, those privileges are absolutely invaluable. The library has access to federal financial aid assistance, scholarships. There are learning aids and tutorial devices available. There are testing and educational references available to support you in many different academic and educational and professional endeavors. So you want to take advantage of that resource. Another really important resource available at the library for students is free printing. I'm going to repeat what I just said. Free printing. You can print up to 20 pages per day for free at your local library simply by sending it to the library with the subject print, and that can even be a color print item. So the information is available here, but please visit dclibrary.org to get information on becoming a member, getting a library card, and taking advantage of all the materials that they have available to help you in your educational pursuit. There are a few apps that I really think are great, and I would like to encourage you to take a look at. Evernote helps you take notes anywhere. It helps you find information faster. It helps you share ideas. You can do meeting notes, web pages, project to-do lists. Also, I would like to recommend Todoist. It allows you to make checklists. If you get up and you do a checklist, you can keep yourself on target. If you think about the information that all the panelists have shared with you, it was a lot about being organized. And next, this is really important, mylife.com has Stop, Breathe, and Think. This is a mindfulness app. This will help you to reduce your stress and anxiety. Now, these are just a few sample resources, and there are others that are available, but I want to encourage you to make mindfulness practices and activities to de-stress and to relax, part of this new journey. I have a few more apps I'd like to share with you that are grouped by category. Time management, you have Google Calendar, My Study Life, and Focus Booster. Homework apps include Photomath, Socratic, and Quizlet. Citation tools, Cite This For Me, Mendeley Reference Manager, and then there's some scholarship websites, Niche, CAPEX, and Unigo. So you can take a look at any of these resources, and again, they are here to help you, and many of them are free. There are some additional resources that I would like to bring to your attention, including the webpage for the Student Loan Ombudsman, where I keep scholarships available for you, as well as other educational support items. You always want to keep student aid, federal student aid on speed dial. Then we have the health blog. You want to look at 5 ways to manage your mental health during COVID. I believe Professor Beltran mentioned and provided Zapier blog, the Pomodoro apps. We have 7 considerations for transferring schools. So if you decide that maybe you want to transfer from a faraway school to a local school because it's virtual, you want to look at some information on what to do to transfer. We also have a list of links on what to do to be a successful online student. Having said that, I'd like to take any questions and answers that you guys may have now. Are there any questions in the room? Let's see here. So as we wrap up, I would like to thank everyone, especially our panelists, for taking time out of their day to join us and to talk about being a successful virtual student. I want to encourage people to keep up with the Student Loan Ombudsman. We have a number of events that are going to be coming in the fall and in the winter. And so check out our webpage, check your email. We'll be sending things out. If you have any questions or concerns about grants, scholarships, scheduling matters, please make me a resource to you. You want to send any emails to me at dcloanhelp@dc.gov. I am here to support and assist you guys in any way possible. And we have some great things coming up in the fall, and we will be sending information out. Thank everyone for joining us. I wish everyone a successful and safe fall. Please continue to social distance and follow CDC guidelines.